She's so fine. Hell of her blows my mind. Hell of her lights my day.
What's good, guys? This video is going to be regarding the Kenneka Jenkins case. The other day I did what we learned from Zack TV1's interview with Irene Roberts. Tonight I'm going to do what we learned from the interview that Zack TV1, Zack Stoner, did with Peas and Killa, also known as Teefy. His government name is Dorian Hill. So, straight out the gate, Zack's first question out his mouth puzzled me slightly. His exact question was, were you two guys at the party when Kenneka Jenkins was found dead in the freezer? And I thought that was an odd question because Zack was used to doing interviews, had done them for a long time. But the way he phrased that question, both Peas and Teefy both said yes. But that's not true. They were not at the party when Kenneka Jenkins was found dead in the freezer. They were at the party when she went missing. So I thought that was interesting. Zack starts to ask them about the party, and he asked what time they got there. Peas obviously was the most vocal of the two, but don't get it twisted because Teefy did put his 2 cents in. And I've watched this interview countless times. I'd say maybe the last 5 times I've watched it is when I really, really got a feel for what was being said in the interview. And that's just the honest truth. Peas said they got there at like 12 something. Alright. He said it was packed when they got there. There was a lot of people there. And Zack asked if Kenneka was there when they got there, and they both said yes. Peas said he had known her for a few years, and he knew her because that was his man's girl. And he did say that Rico, that's who he's speaking about, his man's, that's Rico. Rico was not at the party. He had gotten out the day of this interview that they did with Zack Stoner. And he said that Rico was crushed to learn about Kenneka. He clarified with Zack and said that nobody had forced themselves onto Kenneka or even raped her at the party. That was foolery. Zack talks about the reflection in Irene's glasses. Talking about the Red Hawks sweater. Both of them said no, it wasn't them in the reflection. Said the party was dead when Irene went live. But Zack asks where they were in the live. Like where they were located in the room. And Peas says, quote, probably somewhere sitting on the other bed. Probably somewhere standing up dancing. Somewhere in that room. Teefy never answered that question. But my thing about that was, if Peas remembered enough to know that the party was dead at that point when the live went down. You don't remember where you were situated in that live as many times as I know they had done watched it at that point. That was a little strange to me. They did clarify that there was just one room. Now this is in Teefy and Peas' perspective. They said there was just one room with 2 beds. Teefy actually piped up and said it was a regular cheap-ass room. They did acknowledge that there was liquor and weed at the party. Teefy says he thinks Kenneka was drinking Hennessy. Peas looks at Teefy and says, yeah, they had the big Henny out the bottle. Then Zack asks if Kanika was drinking from the bottle or a cup. Peace says she had a little cup, then eventually got the bottle. Peace starts talking about how they were drinking. He starts rambling, really. And Teefy kind of adjusts his feet, and in the process, he hits against P's leg. Was that intentional? I don't know. In other words, kind of to say, if you don't shut up, it could have been. Because Pease was rambling at that point. Zack asked if they had ever seen Kanika under the influence before. Pease starts to answer, and he says, I've seen her under the influence, but I ain't never seen her not. And then he cuts off because Teefy starts talking. And he says they were just all together the weekend before that. They say that was a very regular thing for them. Both Pease and Teefy both said that Kanika was Irene's real friend. They talk about when Monifa and Shemaya came back in the room and said that Kanika was missing. And their initial thought was that Kanika had dipped off with a guy. Then you hear a third voice come in. And if I'm not mistaken, that's TY talking. Okay? Let's see. P says they definitely weren't thinking the worst when they initially heard that Kanika was missing. He said they didn't just automatically go from 0 to 100, that the worst had happened. He said when they did realize that it was serious, they went door to door, floor to floor. They didn't care if it was 3 or 4 in the morning. The third voice comes in, which again I think is TY. And he says that they told the guy at the desk to play the camera back. P says what they did was what anybody else would do if their friend was missing. He said everybody started participating. But then again in the interview they say there were only 6 or so people left in the party. So as we know from the footage that we are able to see, we didn't see everybody looking. Okay? Now, were they on the floor going around? We won't ever know that. Zack asks if it's true that they told security to play the camera back. Peace says they told the guy behind the desk their friend was missing. He did not seem concerned. He walked off and left his desk unattended. The third voice pipes up, which I, again, am assuming is TY, and he said like he didn't give a F. Peace said he felt disrespected by the front desk, the guy behind the front desk. TY says, and again, I'm going to assume that the third voice is TY. TY says, here they are out in the middle of the suburbs. And I'm not going to use the word that he used. But he said, so they knew they couldn't do much or they would be removed. Okay? P said they didn't say anything at all to them. They being the hotel staff and them being P's and Teefy. And TY and them. Says they couldn't find anybody. TY says everybody disappeared. P said there was 2 main security guards, but there was nobody to be found when Kanika was missing. Now, he begins to tell a story about how nobody was found when Kanika was missing. But he's talking about, he uses the word Kendra as an example. I'll be honest with you. When I first started watching this interview, back when this first started happening, I thought it was a slip-up. I thought Kendra was a slip-up. It's not. When you put it into context, and this is, again, my humble opinion on this. When you put it into context, Pease is trying to use the name Kendra as an example. Alright? Teefy said they really weren't concerned until the next day when she was still missing. TY said it didn't even seem real. He said it was like some movie shit. That's what he said. And P said something just didn't sit well with him when he was leaving. But he did not want to think the worst like that. P says they were all around the hotel. How did she end up in the freezer? Both him and Teefy said they didn't even know it was a basement. Which I thought was an interesting statement. P says that he went back there where the chairs were stacked up because this was at night, so there was no need to have these chairs in the conference center is what he's trying to say. And he says the chairs were stacked up, and he says that that was a creepy place to be. He said even the toughest guy would have gotten creeped out down there. So he wondered why Kanika would have went back there in the first place. Now this is what P said. They both said that Kanika was on her P's and Q's and would fight. He gets back on this hotel being creepy, and he says that everybody has seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is his reference to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He said the mama was in on it, the daddy was in on it, the sheriff was in on it. He got that same vibe that he got from watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre from this hotel. And TY, again, pipes up and says, where did everybody go? Where did they all disappear to? P says it's awful funny because they were really present, telling them to put a towel up under the door. And Zack implies that he's kind of like he's asking leading questions. So he was like, so you think that was for them to try to keep you guys there for some particular reason? This interview really shocked me. Looking back at some of Zack's other interviews. But they said that they received multiple calls. That's at least what they implied, because P said they were steady calling us in the room. So that to me meant there was multiple calls placed to that room. Teefy says that they never made any kind of advances towards the girls. He said that they were constantly around them. Sometimes they would sleep on the couch, the girls, and they would sleep on the floor. It wasn't like that between them. And he says that Kanika's mom needs to get to the bottom of what happened in that hotel. Because he said, quote, that shit ain't cool, end quote. Zack then asks if they have reached out to her family. They both said they only knew her. They didn't know her family. But they wouldn't have a problem reaching out to them. And Teefy just flat out says, I feel like the hotel had something to do with it. Pease chimes in and says the same thing. Zack then asks both of them why they would target Kanika. Teefy thinks it was because she was in the hallway by herself. And TY is kind of piping in here too, basically saying it's perfect timing. And then Teefy says they heard no hollering inside that room coming from outside the room. But then again, you also have to take into account that they had music going on the inside of that room. Zack asks them about how crimes are committed in Chicago. If somebody's really wanting somebody, what they would do to them. They both unanimously reply that they would just shoot them. Peace says the guy at the desk told them, Pease and them, to call the police and fill out missing persons forms, and he walked off. He says one of the girls threatened the guy behind the desk. Pease says he went back and apologized. He says the guy from the desk again told him to call the police and walked off and never called hotel security. So Pease was like, here one of these girls just threatened him on his job, and he didn't call the police. But then he said they actually called the room about a group of girls causing a disturbance and said they needed to get them back in the room or they would need to leave. So he's like, you're worried about a disturbance, with some girls, but you're not worried about Kanika being missing. And that stood out to Peas. Teefy said he just wants justice for her. Peas said he would like to apologize to her mom. He flat out said that. For basically not looking out for their own. They're all from the west side. That's what I mean. They talk about Andrew Holmes. And Teefy calls him bogus. Says he came out of nowhere lying and shit. That's what he said. And Teefy says that they need to show the footage so people can know what's really going on. And then TY says they've probably already doctored the videos by now. Which I think is a very interesting statement. Very interesting. Peas says that when they left the hotel, they all left, got in their vehicle, and remembered that somebody had forgotten something in the room. So they're like, dang. So Peas has to get out of the vehicle, go back into the hotel, go back in the elevator, go back up to the 9th floor, get in the room, get whatever it was he left. He never said what it was he left. Come back down. And he said at that point is when, as he's walking back out, he didn't say if that was on the 9th floor. He didn't say if that was in the lobby. He didn't say if that was in the parking lot. But he says that's when he saw the security guard. And he said that the security guard turned back around to look at him. Teefy says, again, that in his opinion, the footage should prove everything. In my personal opinion, I think TY was onto something by saying that the videos had already been doctored by that point. That's just my personal opinion. So, Zack said that he felt like Teefy and Peas were being genuine. He wanted to check their body language. I think they were nervous at first, but I don't think that they stayed nervous for long. I think that once they warmed up to Zack, I think that they were good. But I do think they were nervous in the beginning, probably because they had watched Zack on YouTube before. They knew that he was a local celebrity of sorts. And that probably made them pretty nervous. Now, in the beginning, when I first started watching these, I didn't think so. I thought they were a nervous wreck. But now watching it, sometime afterwards, probably maybe after the first 20 times I watched it, I started to see something different. That's why I always think it's good to go back and refresh yourself, because your whole perspective can change. You might have felt one way at the beginning, but after you learned some new facts or did some research on something, your whole perspective can change. It's a fact. You can change your perspective. So I just wanted to do this refresher of sorts to talk about what we really got out of the interview with Peas and Teefy. And I'm going to end the video there. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.